Hello everyone, this is your TA Tamanna and today we will learn about coefficient of variation and z-score. First of all, let me start by saying that coefficient of variation is a relative measure of variation that's expressed as a percentage. Unlike the other measures of variation such as standard deviation and variance, coefficient of variation measures the dispersion in the data relative to the mean. The coefficient of variation is especially useful when we want to compare two or more sets of data that are measured in different units. For example, here we have different brands of cereals and their calories per serving and the sugar they contain in grams. Now, suppose we want to compare the variation of calories per serving among different brands with the sugar amount, but these are measured in different units. So how can we do that? So in this case, we can compare the coefficient of variation, the calories and sugar. So let's do that. As I told you before, that coefficient of variation gives you the variation in the data relative to the mean, and it is expressed as a percentage. So the formula is pretty simple. It is standard deviation over mean multiplied by 100%. So to get that, first now let's get the mean. Last week we learned how to get the mean, so let's use that knowledge. You write average, select your data, close parenthesis and enter. Now let's get average for the sugar amount. Average, select data, close parenthesis and enter. So on average, per serving of the cereals contain 5.85 grams sugar. Now to get sample standard deviation, we get std ev dot s, select data. Similarly for sugar, we get std ev dot s, select data, close parenthesis and enter. Now let's get the variance too. Select var dot s, select your data, close parenthesis and enter. var dot s, parenthesis, select your data, close parenthesis and enter. So these are the standard deviations and the variances, and you can see that there is a huge difference in these two standard deviation and variances, since these two are calculated in different units. So let's see what's the coefficient of variation. To get coefficient of variation, first of all, I'm gonna take a shortcut and format cells. I'm gonna select percentage and select 2 decimal points, 2 decimal places, and select OK, so that I don't have to multiply it by 100% anymore. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select equal sign, I'm gonna type equal sign, select standard deviation and divide it by the mean, enter, and the coefficient of variation for calories is 36.08%. Now for sugar, I'm going to type equal sign, select the standard deviation and divide it by the mean, enter, and it's 57.84%. You see, we have seen before there's a very big difference between the standard deviation and the variance, and in absolute terms, but when we're taking the coefficient of variation, we can see that is actually the variation in sugar amount is larger than the variation in the calories. Pretty amazing, right? So that's how we can get coefficient of variation. Now let's move on to z-score. Z-score of a value is the difference between the value and the mean divided by the standard deviation. Z-score helps us to identify outliers. Now, what's an outlier? Usually in a data set, the values are scattered around the mean. If a value is significantly farther from the mean, then it is an outlier. Either it's too big or it's too small from the mean. If a value is outlier, then the outlier value will have either very large positive z-score or negative z-score. As a general rule, if a value has a z-score that is outside the band of -3 to +3, then it's an outlier value. Now, how to calculate z-score? It's pretty simple. You just deduct the mean from a particular value and then divide it by the standard deviation. Here, what we have here is the time, say the time you're stuck in a traffic on your way to school every day. So let's get the mean first. Equal sign, average parenthesis, select data, close parenthesis, and enter. To get standard deviation, equal sign stdev dot s parenthesis, select data, close parenthesis, and enter. Now z-score, equal sign, remember to put parenthesis, select your value minus mean, and we have to lock the mean with the $sign before and after b, so that the mean is deducted from each of the value and divided by standard deviation, and we have to log the standard deviation in the denominator as well. Now press enter and we have the z-score for the first value. Now put the plus sign in the corner and drag down, and we'll get the z-scores for each of the values. As you can see that there is no value that has a z-score that exceeds +3 or is lower than -3. So we can conclude that in this data set there is no outlier. That's all for this video. Thank you.